awesome answer. Absolutely awesome answer. Last question, and then I'll do a bit of an introduction into how I know you, and we'll just flow then. Now, what's the best thing about life for a rabbit leader?
Love, without question. Absolutely love, and the relationship that I've got with Mrs. Rabbit. We've been together for a long time, and she deserves a medal, really. An outstanding woman. So that's part of my answer. So it's a love primarily. But secondly, it's also being alive, Matty, in these craziest of times. We're living through just amazing times, aren't we? Where we're being told A, B, and C, where the reality is X, Y, and Z, and you're trying to work out the duality of it all, which I'm sure I'll come on to later and explain more about duality and the head trip that media gives us. It's crazy times to be alive, Matty. Yeah, same, Matty, and thank you for that. It's been quite a struggle for everybody. There's a report come out today, isn't it? Some reports, scientists say, according to new research, all that rubbish. But they're talking about the effect on mental health of the lockdowns on Twitter, and they're passing it off as insignificant, really, which is shocking. But like we said earlier, anything that comes out of the MSM is rubbish. But it's been great for me as well. It's kept me sane, speaking to people of a similar mind all the way through this. I'm a strong character anyway, but even to me, it's given me a little flip, a little lift up occasionally, where, because you question yourself all the time, Matty, you read a piece of information, go somewhere to check it, and then you think, oh, crikey, this is not as we're being told. And then you go further down that proverbial rabbit hole. And it gets more and more of a head trip inside your own head. And you should be questioning yourself all the time, like with this COVID pandemic response. And we're on a certain side of the fence. And I always ask myself, I'm always checking myself, have you got this right, Rabbit? You sure about this? Because this is quite a startling revelation. For example, something like, my government is lying to me, or my government has not got my best interests at heart. And that really takes a moment or two to get your head around. So it's been a constant adjustment for everybody on this side of the fence, checking ourselves. And like you say, we've been able to have a laugh. My default setting, as you might have noticed, is humor online. I like to have humor, and perhaps we'll discuss the character that is Rabbit Leader 230. So it's been great for me as well. So I thank you for that. Thank you, and thank you to everybody.
Basically, what I said at the end there was, when I'm explaining to people, they're coming to asking me questions which a year ago they wouldn't have asked. And they're asking me questions what I think about this from what I know, because now they're seeing evidence of people being injured. Now they're seeing evidence of dying suddenly, as the term is. And even as I'm explaining to them, Rabbit, I'm saying, surely it won't happen. Surely those Deagle predictions are not going to be true. Surely, so I'm double checking myself when I'm explaining to them or answering their questions. But it's not looking good, I don't think. But hopefully we're wrong, and hopefully these studies are wrong.
Yeah, you've touched on another good point there. Crikey, in the early doors of the pandemic, one of my backgrounds is in mental health, and it's a topic that I feel very strongly about, and I always try and help people. And I literally lost count of the total strangers that I reached out to on Twitter back in the day, who were saying, oh my God, I've had enough of this, I'm really struggling. You're basically saying they were going to end it all, without sounding too dramatic. And I'd reach out to them and we'd start talking. And one woman I was on the phone for the whole afternoon. We started talking, but I still talk to those people now. And it's been crazy, the effect on mental health. And the second thing that you touched on there, which is, once you get a notion to do with COVID in your head and you're satisfied with it and you're at peace with whatever you're thinking about, but then you go out and you start explaining it to Joe Blogs in your local community, and a little voice in your head jumps in and says, "Oh, crikey, this sounds really weird." Even though you're sure of your ground, once you start speaking it aloud to another person, it becomes, again, another head trip, doesn't it?
Epic, absolutely epic. And that's when you described it as a game show. The smirk came to myself, because I'm sitting there thinking, go through this door, that's the winning door, go through that door. That's exactly what it seems to have been. And it's been a crazy time going through all this. It really has. And not even before that, life was pretty crazy enough as it was. It was pretty adverse, there was adversity naturally. And now it just seems that it's all been catapulted. But you mentioned there about alternative media as well. And sometimes I'm sat there thinking that this has all been fueled as well. And I've said this on other podcasts with Sam and Andy. And there's part of me that thinks that all the channels, all the people that are putting out truth, researching, that was meant to happen as well. Because if and when the truth does come out, and it looks like it is on all this, and I'm pretty sure a lot of truth will come out on other stuff, because for them to usher in a lesser world order, which is my opinion, they're going to do, they have to have the majority of people wanting it. The only way to do that is by showing how broken everything is before. Now, I'm not one of these guys that think the system's broken. I'm one of these guys that think the people who are running it are broken. That's what I think. But getting back to this particular point I'm making here, they've broken it. They've shown very well they've broken it. But one of the things that is broken is the mainstream media. And you can't really use them going forward to try and tell everybody that, oh, this is the actual truth. But you know what? You can use all these alternative truth channels. And you're right, there's loads of them that you can't trust, that they're just making stuff up. They're in it just for the money. They're in it just to get famous or whatever. But there are some absolute solid ones that you can trust. And who, when they make mistakes, they go, oh, I've made a mistake there. Damn, I didn't know that. There are ones that you can trust. And I believe that is that was meant to happen, because it's going to be those channels, it's going to be those people that have been telling the truth all the way through, that have been looking into things all the way through. They're going to be the main ones they're basically going to become the new mainstream media. That's what I think.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Sam and Andy C, by the way. I've listened to all your podcasts with them, and they come across really well. Andy is my sort of man, and Sam, well, he's just so intelligent and well-read that it's ridiculous. He'll start telling you a story, and then he'll have to backtrack about 1,000 years, and he knows everything. Wonderful. So Sam, if you're listening, and Andy, top man. Yeah, you talk about a lesser world order there, Matty, and it reminds me of what David Icke goes on about. Say what you like about David Icke, but he has put a lot of us on the road to, what should we call it, questioning things, shall we say. Never mind about the Queen's a reptile and all that rubbish, no idea. But some of the things he says about, is he called the Hegelian dialectic? I can never pronounce that. It's where they, the bad guys, introduce a problem, garner the reaction, and then they offer the solution, problem, reaction, solution, that triangle. And you might be right, they might be offering us a lesser new world order. But again, it's probably already been game played anyway out by these critters, because they've been planning it a long time. The other thing that this game show, I like calling it that, this game show has done is, if you're not very aware of it, it'll keep you, going back to mental health again, this is, it'll keep you in a state of high anxiety, fear, and therefore you're more susceptible to believing the BS that appears on certain channels, whether it be mainstream or alternative. But it does, it keeps you in that high anxiety state, which is not good for your own mental health. Well, I hope so. It's probably a controlled leak as well, but it is positive that at least something's coming out, because anything for the want of a better word, the normies, to help make them become more aware, can only help really. So in that view, I'm like, yeah, major positive for these WhatsApp things coming out. You say we're winding up, Matty. I think we're winding this one up. There's one more point I want to make is people who saw through this pandemic scam. These should be the people in positions of power as we move forward. Because it's like in the UK here, we've got Tories and Labour, two main political parties, and you see it on Twitter all day. Oh, a new Labour government would do X, Y, and Z, and right the wrongs that the Tories have done, allegedly. And then you think, oh yes, the same Labour government that voted with the Tories all the way through on the pandemic measures. No, thank you. And it's been well said by various people that they're two wings of the same bird anyway. It's the uni party. Definitely got a uni party in the USA, but USA is a talk for another day, I expect. But our parties over here, the upper echelons, are certainly that they work together. And you've got to ask yourself that this is where the lesser New World Order comes in, Matty, doesn't it? Because you're like, okay, these people can't be trusted again, so therefore what do we do? And I wanted to leave people on that thought, actually. How on earth can you entrust these suits to represent us in the future? They can't be trusted.